That's kind of cool. Good spot? Yeah. Hi. Gonna finally wash these dishes. You don't even have to help dry. We call it letting God do the drying. It's not blasphemous for me to speak of God. Because my God has many faces and comes more often female. Does not make it wrong to use the term God. You could do it with a small g, you know. What name would you give the God that drives? Well, it would be a province of Hestia. Probably one of her many castes. She's the goddess of hearth and home. But then there's also a goddess of pottery. She might be involved, although this is glass. But that would fit in under pottery. I mean, glass was invented through pottery. Did you know that? That's Sam. I'm doing all this noise and he's joining in. Yes. Glass was invented originally as a glaze. Basically, they discovered that when they did castings, sometimes the sand around the pottery, if it was hot enough, would melt and stick and produce a lovely translucent finish. And they experimented with it. And of course, you know, we're talking about generations of teaching and learning and experimenting. You know, a teenager coming along and saying, Dad, let's try it this way, and Dad either going, okay, or going, you're crazy. But, you know, teenager tries it. New technique is discovered. Most of our discoveries are teenagers, actually. They're not busy running around trying to discover themselves. Yes. See, I use a basin in the sink. Partly because it's a single sink, partly because it reduces the need for water and soap, which is an environmentalist thing to do. And I started the habit when I lived here with no running water for the first 5 months. I moved in and the pipes were all messed up, so I would just bring in water by jug, and it was precious to me. So I learned to conserve water then, and I've kind of stuck with it because it's a good idea, especially living where, indeed, in my lifetime, we could see the river dry up, depending on climate change. It's a good habit to learn to be a little more careful with water. It won't bother me as much. Oh, you see, though, watch out when you stick your fingers in there. You might get poked. I keep my knives sharp. This. She used to have a cute little flower in the back and some things. And it sits upright in a little vase. It's kind of cute. Now it's just an ugly orangey green dish brush, and it's starting to flare. If it's too flared, you got to get rid of it. Get a new one. It's the Dutch way. European? I don't know. I learned to clean by the Dutch method. I learned to knit by a Dutch method. I learned most of my things the Dutch way. Because my mother was Dutch. So she taught me to do things the way that the Dutch do it. Washing with a dish brush among them. No, I don't rinse the soap. I don't use a lot of soap, though. Maybe. If I noticed it when I was using these dishes, I'd worry about it. Other than Dan's water glass and his coffee pot, nothing ever seems to really notice that there's soap. So I think if there's any left, it's pretty minimal. And it's a pretty safe soap I use. Actually, right now I'm using Dove Lavender Chamomile. It's getting harder to find a good commercial product that's not toxic and nasty, you know. I'm not pouring it in my aquarium, but I'd like to know it wouldn't kill the fish if I did. Because I am pouring it into the river, inevitably. I really do need to use less soap, though. But yeah, a lot of the glasses get rinsed, just so I can see if they're clean. So suds will get in the way. Oh, last night's wine glass. There's nothing nicer than a bit of wine late in the evening. To just lift on your mood. tell you, there's nothing worse than taking videos of yourself and to wreck your self-image. I feel so physically unattractive. Not that I really need to be attractive for anyone or anything. No one really gives a hoot. But don't think I've let myself go. I've been sick and I'm working on it. But anybody is shaken at 50 years old. There's a limit to what I'm going to be able to accomplish. And by the time I accomplish it, a lot of other features will have fallen due to age. So I'm just going to go for fitness and screw the attractiveness. I mean, come on. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm past the point of mating and dating and having to attract. Him? He's psychological. The husband is psychological. I could be ugly enough to turn him off, but it would be through ill health, poor habits, poor hygiene, that sort of thing. It wouldn't be because I was shaped a little bit differently or I got a little older. Attractiveness happens in two places, and both are in the mind. One is the animal lust center, where you're looking at somebody for breeding purposes, and the other is the human companionship factor, where you're looking at them for mating purposes. Sometimes the two go together, especially if you want to raise children. But for men, a lot of times it has to do with their age of life, and as they mature, they get a better idea of what they want, and they find that it hasn't got a lot to do with what she looks like, or what his pals think of her, or who's impressed by his possession of her. And more to do with, how do I feel when I get home to work at the end of the day and this person isn't home? That's important. How does it feel when you get home? Does it feel like home or a brand new battleground? Because a battleground, you've got something to sort out. If it's home, you'll always come home. Always go home. I always go home, don't you? They're not going home, they're going somewhere else, and that's not home. And that's the problem you gotta sort out. So, you don't have to be attractive. You don't have to have a pneumatic figure as George Orwell, I think. No, was it George Orwell? Who the heck was it? Aldous Huxley. He was the one that coined the term pneumatic. It didn't catch on with anyone but me, but I always thought it was pretty cute. Pneumatic was his slang term in his novel that his characters used to define particularly attractive women. And it referenced one of the leading technologies of the day, pneumatic tires and pneumatic shafts, and we call hydraulics because instead of air we push oil. But for a while they were pushing air. They were using air to move things, to do things, to actuate things. And air was nice. It was a nice clean material. I'm not exactly sure why oil is better. I think because it's easier to contain and seal off. Never really studied up on it, but there was a time when air was the leading technology. Pneumatic mail tubes, and so a pneumatic reference is tube full of air. Like a pneumatic tube system for your mail. That's sort of old-fashioned. You put the mail in the slot and it goes, you'll see them sometimes in an old hotel or building and it'll go flying off. That's a pneumatic system. And so pneumatic referenced women who looked like they were all pumped up full of air, And, yeah, nubile is another word that works. You don't need to be. You really don't. It's useful if you want to have a range of choices of shallow-minded people to choose from. But beyond that, it doesn't really get you very far. unless you're making a career out of it. 10 minutes, that's fine. I'm going to go for 20, okay? We'll wash dishes for a while. It usually takes about 20 minutes to do the dishes. So, YouTube seems to be okay with longer videos these days. They used to have a 9-minute limit. Of course, they might still, and I might find out when I get up there to check all the stuff that I've been uploading. The only way I'm going to be able to start uploading a ton of videos, like I'm seeing other people do on YouTube, and it looks like fun, is if I quit worrying about it. Because the worrying is the inhibition that stops you from moving forward and carrying out your desire. You desire to learn a skill. You won't be able to learn that skill if you spend the time worrying about how well you and how fast you're learning it and who's impressed about it. You're too inhibited. I don't need to care if people are going to watch it all the way through or if it's put together right. If my rambling is interesting. It's free. There's no investment. Not for you, not for me. We're just free. You can just come and visit. Not visit. Visit for as long as you want. Get sick of me? You're gone. I like that. The other cool thing about this video is you will never take it personally, whatever I say, unless it's a generic personally, like I reference, like when I reference people from the First Nations. If I go about it wrong and I say something that's BS, or just unnecessary, or, contains them in some way, that would be a situation. I might say something that's offensive. But when people are here in person, all of a sudden everything's personal. I can't make general observations about anything without it somehow pertaining to something they're supposed to note and take in as information and respond to. I don't really get that. I always seem to respond with anger. And I don't even know what... The other day, for instance, I was suggesting an entertainment option for Dan. For if he has to stay at work and wait on someone. And he took extreme offense, and it was very difficult for me to get him to explain what it was about him that offended him. Now, we got it sorted out. I did get him to explain, and we did get it sorted out, and I don't know if it'll come up again. That's neither here nor there. I'm not going to talk about the details, because that's his business. But that sort of thing just happens constantly for me. People are like, are you talking about this because you think I'm that? And I'm like, you're that? I never noticed. Oh, you're just saying that now. The only time I ever just say something to you is when I have given up and I don't respect you. If I respect you, I will tell you straight up, front and center. I don't mince my words, but neither do I marbleize them and candy coat them or make them up. Most importantly, I don't make them up. They come from my perception of reality. Not what I want you to think it is. It's not about shaping your perception of me. I realize now, as a mature adult, that that's actually possible. And people do it all the time, and it blows my mind, and it explains why politicians I can look right through nevertheless get elected right up to the top sometimes. And I look at them and I think, how can people be so fooled? And why is this out? I've left my liquid plant food sitting on the windowsill. But there isn't enough clutter in this house. Yeah, that's because people can be completely fooled. You can convince people of that which is not so through through storytelling. And we're not just talking about, oh, well, they can't go and experience it for themselves either. It can be things happening right there in the room next to them. No, there's no elephant in the room. Do you see an elephant? See, he doesn't see an elephant either. Nobody sees an elephant in the room. So, the elephant trainer goes crazy looking for his elephant. Picks up its feet, looks under its tail, looks down its trunk. Really. And if the rest of the group doesn't eventually give up the prank, the elephant trainer eventually maybe becomes blind to elephants. Not sure what the hell an elephant is anymore. Because it's surely not this big gray thing everybody's not seeing. I guess for an autistic, that's not so. We don't fall to that group mind. It's a puzzle to me. It really is. I read literature about it, and I observe it, and I see it in the television programs, and, I watch it happen to people around me, and I just still don't get it. I believe it, but I don't get it. The very fabric of reality changes. And yet, by the same token, I do hold with the existential belief that what is around us is merely more or less random energy. It's got form, it's got shapes. You can't say random, but it's bouncing around pretty much at random, and our brain takes it in and decides what goes together and what does not, and what gets discarded and what gets observed. Now, this is the key part. You don't look at the dust motes in the air any more than the camera focuses on them, simply because they're not important. It's how people who live in really dirty homes don't know they're living in dirty homes. It's not important. They don't see it. It doesn't focus, therefore they don't see it. That's how hoarders wind up. You don't perceive it. And so you perceive what you perceive, and thus you create your reality. And this goes even on an atomic and physics level. I mean, dark energy did not exist until we started to perceive a need for it. And then suddenly, whoa, look what we can see. We're going to build a way to see it. I don't know, it's hard to... I've lost the thread of my original topic, but other than this bowl with its crusted, stuck-on, hard, dried stuff, what is it anyway? I think this was my curry yesterday. I got these mixed up. See, when food gets stubborn, I get serious. Now be careful, of course, you don't want to scratch your dishes. But this glass is pretty sturdy that way. Yeah, that was last night's curry, all right. Out of the freezer into the microwave. And then eventually I gave half of it to the dogs because I really didn't like it. So this is part of what happens. I don't like chewing my vegetables. So I start out, have a good meal, and then I'm still hungry because half of it's gone back in the fridge or whatever. And what do I like to eat? Well, fruit salad, coconut cream, marzipan, honey, and there are ways out even without sugar in your life, it's possible to eat too much sugar. I mean, I think a glass of maple syrup is good for you. And when taken in context, I do that sort of thing more than I should, and I know it. And that's the last dish. There you go. Easy to stack today. Some days it's a little more challenging. Oh, I should wipe down the stove, don't you think? Don't you think? Yeah? Wipe down the stove? Okay, but first, let me just say goodbye to you.